for
Yeah,
services?
we get that question occasionally, but here's my answer to that. There's some stuff that we will always, that we will always contract out to the private sector, right? We
Mm-hmm.
are outsourcing our email to Microsoft in the cloud, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
going through that migration now. We run Oracle's EBS for our financial and HR backbone. We run Hansen for our inspections and our permitting, right? There are core enterprise services and applications that will never be serviced by I shouldn't say never, but for the foreseeable future, will never be serviced by an open source solution. There are also going to be things that municipalities do that nobody else does that there will never be a market for, and that I'm going to be better serviced forming a partnership with the city of Houston or the city of St. Louis, to figure out, because we're going to have garbage pickup issues that nobody else has.
Right.
And that there's not a good commercial value proposition around, and that we're going to have to figure out ourselves. And there's also just going to be things that I need to move faster on than I can get my own procurement engine to move fast enough on. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it takes me way too long to get an RFP out the door. And so that's one of my answers, is sometimes the sort of traditional commercial RFP route is not the way to go. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, and I get to make that choice, and I need to make sure I have the skill set to deliver when I make that choice.
Right.
But the other thing too is we're doing enough cutting edge stuff in the analytics space. I'm lucky in this that I've got some really great partnerships going with some heavy hitters like IBM and Oracle, where they want to work on some of the splashier stuff that we're doing, which with, in some small pilot areas, I have the chance to do.
Right. So that's the second half of Brett's question. So what you're saying is that conversely, you're also starting to see some opportunities. You're becoming a catalyst for some private sector stuff as well.
Right, exactly. And my answer to those big private sector companies is I've got real serious problems, challenges here in Chicago. Do you want to work on one of those with me, and what would you suggest we do?
Right. We're getting close to, I think, everybody's time limits because of our earlier technical problems. But for a city that's getting, that's maybe a little bit late to it, wherever that city is, as far as getting this to, everybody kind of getting their vision together on this, what would be a great thing for an early civic hack? Like, what's a good thing for people to play with that's easy for government to open up? What would be the low-hanging fruit in your mind after all of this stuff that is just easy, something that people see quickly the benefits of?
Sure. So we were really opportunistic early on with the data we put out there. Is we went after the data sets that were clean and ready to go. So don't feel bad about being opportunistic. We were opportunistic at the beginning, but then we also started to look for those data sets that were tied towards problems that people want to talk about. So people always love to talk about crime, and obviously we're a city that's having a very serious conversation about that. But the issue with that is, right, it's sensitive data, so obviously think carefully about how you share that. Right. Obviously. The other thing, right, people love to talk about schools, but again, that is also sensitive data, and we're another city that is having a very serious conversation about schools. But then look to places where so the thing about hackathons, right, and this is important, and I actually I was a little bit, not late, I didn't know a thing about hackathons until sort of somewhat recently. It wasn't my background, is the developers want to be useful. When developers show up, they come with this great skill set from a development perspective. Make sure you cultivate the community members or the folks within your government departments who are the users that can actually talk about the problem. So whatever data sets you put out there, find a group of data sets. It might even be, honestly, the procurement ones. People love those procurement data sets. Right. Like the contract stuff, the payment stuff, and usually those data sets are pretty ready.
Mm-hmm.
Just just because of like all the stuff that all of us cities have done around getting compliant around procurement. Usually those data sets are pretty ready. People love playing with those because, frankly, the press always thinks they're going to catch somebody doing something,
Mm-hmm.
which usually isn't the case, but there. The developers are going to show up ready with like a good development toolkit, but they're not going to really understand well the business problem
Mm-hmm.
or the or what you're or the value of what they can create for a resident.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really helpful to have more non-technical people on hand than you might realize.
Okay, that's
So
good.
encouraging some of the business folks from your departments or some of the neighborhood, like the community activist type folks to show up and talk with the developers about what the problem is, the question you're trying to answer, that's really valuable. And that speaks back to my point of building that bridge between the developer, because the most powerful team is going to be that developer who's sitting next to the, the neighborhood activist who's trying to answer the question.
Right. That's good. What can if so I'm not sure how in the St. Louis area, we have what's frequently called the balkanization. We have a ton of municipalities. I think 80 to 90 some odd in the county, and the
Wow.
city and this county are not necessarily completely the same political entity. So what are do you know of interoperability things that we could look at, or further, when you have that, those activists tend to be distributed in all those little municipalities. Is there something from a grassroots level that the activists or the civic enthusiasts can be doing to move people towards more open and collaborative data?
That's really good. So here, right, one of the very first things that the mayor and the county president did was, they kicked off a city-county collaborative,
Mm-hmm.
because here we actually have a similar footprint. So, and we were sort of spending money on top of each other, and the lack of collaboration was costing us a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think if gosh, maybe see if there are data sets. So we actually, we share some things. We have two separate portals with our county,
Mm-hmm.
but we share some things across our portal.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe see if there are some common data sets,
Mm-hmm.
and see about releasing some of the same data sets and see what might come from those things.
To see what people do with things from adjacent municipalities in the same data set.
Right, because there's you're going to have people, right, that live in those adjacent places, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see an app coming out where, as somebody who lives somewhere with an overlap or where they need to ask a question of both of you, but they want one answer back.
Mm-hmm.
So look for those data sets that overlap.
That's good. Brett, I'm sorry, I'm trying to respect our time. Brett has one specific question, and I don't know if you can see the chat box, but it's pretty technical. So Brett is a great ally here in the St. Louis County, works in the police department, the county police department. Can you see that question? And I'm just going to read it out loud for the purposes of the webcast, of the recording. But for FEMA Region 7. Okay, go ahead.
Brett, I don't know the answer, but I actually know who will know the answer, and I'm happy to pop it in an email. If we can somehow get connected over email, Brett, I can probably get you the answer.
And Greg will send you guys a sharing email. For the purpose of this, this was a question about how to kind of crowdsource or work with social media and categorization of data, and especially when you look at FEMA and other issues.
Yeah.
So that's great. And we've got several people who have said, they're interested in that.
Sure.
So, I think that we maybe have time for one more question. I was going to ask, do you see, you talked on the back end that, that you've got Esri data, your GIS data is through Esri, but then you built this MongoDB. And as I understand, you're collecting all of this data, and the public can access it through the portal. Internally, you use WindyGrid for situational and analytics and everything, but it's all based on this MongoDB backend. Do you foresee any issues with, Esri GIS data? Is that something that's easy for people to develop around, or is that eventually a problem to get developers to be on board with this if they have to be licensed for using our
Oh,
GIS?
so Esri is our internal GIS system, so we used that as our front end for WindyGrid for expedience and data security reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Because WindyGrid is an internal application, because it includes public safety data that we would not make public.
Mm-hmm. So this is like trouble calls or actual report, real time reporting.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. So at this point in time, WindyGrid, as it is used and developed now, would not be would remain an internal application.
Right.
For anything that we would ever use externally with residents, et cetera, I think our plan would be to, or not even our plan, our strategy would always be to sort of remain open source and sort of platform or application agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the breadth of developers and technologies that are known today and unknown in terms of the future. So we would want to remain as flexible as possible to keep the community as engaged as possible.
Great. Okay. Well, so we've gone an hour here. Thank you very much for your time, Brenna. I know that we have a few people with questions here. We'll go ahead and consolidate those, and if you get a chance to answer them or point us to people, that would be great. But we will publish this shortly. And I just kind of want to wrap up. This is, we're openly disruptive, so we help kind of create a culture of disruptive innovation. And so we wanted to, we're a private organization, but we wanted to facilitate this in other communities. And what I just want to kind of wrap up is what I'm hearing from you is you started with what's the easy things for people to share, make it easy for them to share, make it easy for people to do things do useful things with it, so that you start building some stakeholders, whether that's, real-time situational awareness, deep dives into things, or just, kind of the, sunshine law kinds of reporting, make it easy for people to become fans of opening up data, and then know that it's going to take time for the culture to change a lot. So be patient with it is kind of what I'm hearing too, right? It's a long haul thing. This is not a project to get done by the next election.
No, but you can get a lot done quickly if you focus on what's ready too.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for calling or listening in. And stand by. Make sure that we have your email if you'd like to get a copy of her presentation or get a link to the video as soon as it's posted. Everybody have a great day.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.